Welcome to Money Isn't Everything. I'm Mary Wisniewski, Cornerstone Advisors editor-at-large and host of this show that explores early-stage ideas that could, if not already, shake up financial services. Today on the show is Amy Loh, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at Pipe. Pipe is a fintech company that offers small businesses capital through their software platforms. We chat about tariffs and small businesses, Pipe's recent acquisition of Glean.ai, and how to make career moves in a purposeful way. Here's our convo. Amy, welcome to Money Isn't Everything. It's so good to see you again.
Great to see you, Mary. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things to talk about because you are so positioned to know the small businesses' challenges and needs, and what an important time right now to talk about that with the tariffs on and off again storyline. But I just want to level set the conversation to begin with and to define, everyone has a different definition of a small business. So I want to know how you're thinking about it at Pipe. How do you define it?
Yeah, so I know small businesses is such a broad term. There's over 33 million small businesses in the US. And how we think about the small businesses that we serve today are really kind of like the people, the small businesses that are opening a restaurant or a retail shop, or a contractor that comes into your home to fix the leak in your roof. And so we partner with software platforms that serve these end small businesses, and Pipe is able to provide financial services that's embedded directly into their platform. And so we have partners like Boulevard and Priority, Go Cardless. And so we're able to serve their end small businesses who use those platforms today.
And, it's something I've heard. I've covered fintech for a while. And so it's funny what still is a challenge in the industry. So over the last 10 years, I've always heard small businesses are underserved from their banks, or in theory, their credit union. And, it still seems to be a sleepier area compared to consumer side of things.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious. I mean, what do you think is what's been the holdup, or indoor? What do you still identify as some of the biggest challenges that you see for small business?
Yeah. So I'm actually coming off the back of, shooting a week-long content series where we got to visit some of the small businesses that Pipe has served, and, just a couple of things that really resonated with me. We interviewed a man who replaces water pumps, and he was actually telling me that, going to the bank to get traditional financing wasn't even an option for him, because he came out, he was a veteran, and he was saying that what's worse than having a bad credit score is having no credit score. He doesn't have a FICO score at all. And so there are so many small businesses, especially those that are immigrants, or who don't just who haven't built up enough credit over the years to access those traditional loans that you would go to the bank. And we're able to. What Pipe is unique is that we're able to use their revenue and their merchant history data and provide access to capital and underwrite them, capital up to $200,000, something that they're never able to access in the traditional financing world. And so I still do think small businesses are a very underserved segment today, and that's what Pipe is hoping to solve.
What do you think, what do you think is missed by what's from the banking industry on the small business? Maybe it's even understanding, the kind of clientele, but what do you think are some of the gaps here?
Yeah. So, the traditional banks today, they're just still in using sort of the old methodologies of needing personal guarantees, or needing credit scores. And that's kind of still the basis of what they use for underwriting. We just, through our partners, we just have so much more access to data, and we can use that data to predict what that customer's revenue and what their business is going to look like in the next 12 months. And the banks just don't have access to any of that data, or, they're not, I would say tech savvy and sophisticated enough to really ingest all of that data. And so they're using a completely different set of requirements for underwriting. And we're just able to see so much more rich data from our partners and able to, offer credit in a completely different fashion.
Yeah, the data thing is so interesting. I even heard like an anecdote of like a credit union which didn't know like the average age of their members, which I'm like, wow, that's
Yeah.
surprising as an outsider, but I think it demonstrates like,
Yeah.
the room for improvement.
So, we ask for a very basic set of data, and we have an amazing sort of risk team here. But just using that data, we're projecting that next 12 months of what that business is going to look like. And we're able to offer credit and based off of the different risk ratings that we're able to see from that data. So it's really, really fantastic. It's the most what we say unbiased data because it doesn't require all of this personal history.
Now, Amy, it's really interesting to like predict this all in a year that is so freaking chaotic. I mean, it's like the word of the year is uncertain, of course, but like I'm seeing so many headlines around like small businesses getting hurt hard by the tariffs, of course, and like
Yeah.
feeling really freaked out about what's next. But I'm curious, what are you hearing? What are you seeing? What do you make of this like extra chaotic year?
Yeah, so I mean, this is something that we're monitoring really closely at the moment. I think on a macro scale today, our team has already started to see from a lot of the public reports that consumer spend is starting to decline, and that luckily we haven't seen any of our partners' revenue data really drop yet, since we're kind of constantly ingesting our partners' data and using that to see, how do we adjust sort of credit that we're offering to small businesses. Luckily, we haven't seen that decline yet, but we are sort of bracing for some declines, just given what we're seeing. But on the small business front, we have a merchant support team that talks to small businesses all day long, and they're just essentially kind of educating them about their offer that they've gotten from Pipe, how it works, how it differs from like a bank loan and whatnot. And we're actually, small businesses are concerned about it. In fact, we've actually seen a couple of cases where they've proactively mentioned that, they want access to the capital now to make a really big purchase in inventory because they know that, tariffs are coming and that's really going to hit them pretty hard. And so those are kind of the stories that we're starting to hear, where small businesses are gearing up for the impact of tariffs and potentially a recession. And that capital is, more important than ever right now to make sure that they're prepared for this upcoming season.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because I was thinking, that's like the first move a small business probably wants to make is like make sure they have enough capital. I'm curious too, and this is like separate. This has been more like a TikTok trend, but like, and I'm also seeing like articles on Glamour about it. But it's like another phrase that seems to be trendy with consumers is recession indicator. And they're talking about like cutting back on like, their nails and their hair, thinking it's more expensive. But I mean, this is kind of a roundabout way to ask you, but like, am I remembering this right? You work with like nail salons.
We do work with Boulevard is one of our partners today. And, we haven't seen any of that data as of April to really decline. But, I would expect that that it will probably see some decline since those are some of like the services that may be more who knows? It may be more optional, but I will say like another one of our partners, they're serving, the contractors in the field services industry. And so that I anticipate may not be hit as much because if you have a leak in your roof, like you got to fix it and you got to call someone to come fix it. And so it'll be really interesting to see how this data really changes across different verticals.
This just popped in my head from what you just said, and it's a tangent. So my mind's just sunk. I was in a tangent, but I know this is more for consumers. But I also know like small businesses sometimes are running off their own like credit card or whatever. But do you see any data that shows that a small business owner is using buy now, pay later in any capacity?
I've heard it more from on the consumer side, but definitely that's not something that I heard, but I will kind of touch on what you said that, small businesses, their business and their personal finances are very intertwined, and that, they'll often use their personal credit cards to pay for certain things here and there. And then when it comes to end of year tax and all of that, it just becomes a nightmare to reconcile. So trying to get a complete view of a business finance is something that Pipe is really aiming to do. And we just recently completed an acquisition of Glean.ai, and they're a spend management and that's powered by AI. And we're integrating that into our platform to be able to do this better for small businesses.
Yeah, I want to unpack that a bit more. But before I do, I'm just thinking about how I, even for a work trip, I like put it on my credit card to expense. I'm like, I can't imagine being a small business owner, putting all those expenses. I mean, that's the ultimate junk drawer. That would be awful. But yeah, let's get into Glean. So yeah, what does that allow Pipe to do that it couldn't do before or can do more of now? And yeah, I want to learn more about the data that you're gaining.
Last year, last fall, actually, we came out with the Pipe Business Card, and that's a really aimed to act like a business credit card, but it's actually a 30-day business charge card, but it has a lot of the benefits that you would expect from a credit card company. Like, there's a percentage of cash back. We're also offering things like a float, which gives you additional time at the end of your statement to actually pay off that balance. And so we launched that late last year to sort of like incentivize small businesses to then use that charge card to consolidate the spend into one place. With our recent acquisition of Glean.ai, we're able to integrate even more spend management capabilities so that it becomes a more holistic solution. And so, we use companies like Brex and Ramp for corporate companies, but small businesses just don't have access to something like that today. And that's what really Pipe is aiming to solve. And so if you think that a small business now has a branded card from their partner, they could use customizable rewards where they're able to get, 10x cash back on, Whole Foods or Home Depot or something like that. And so it consolidates all their spend into one place, but then it's also actively reconciling all of those expenses at the same time. And so, for example, you could, make a big purchase at Home Depot, take a picture of it, and it'll send it to Pipe, and then we can automatically suggest that this may be categorized for this specific, this expense is categorized for this specific job. And you can, quickly swipe through and categorize that quickly, because small businesses are spending hours reconciling all of these expenses at the end of the day. And we're just trying to make that really, really easy and magical for them so that it's, they don't have to think about it.
Yeah, that's another awful chore. There's so many awful chores. I wonder too, do you think that helps keep people honest of what they're expensing, that kind of thing? Or does that come up with small businesses? Are they concerned about like granting an employee permission to use a card and then worry like?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that this is kind of like also a budgeting tool as well. Like if you only want to budget X dollars for this specific area, like such as travel or, supplies or something like that, it's helpful to kind of keep track of that. And then if you're also granting, employee permissions as well, you also kind of want to keep tabs on like how much they can spend as well. And so that's definitely coming as well in terms of giving more access, controls into different spend categories for specific employees. But what's really neat about what we're building as well is that it's going to give you a lot of spend insights as well. So, what you're spending on this category, this has increased 20% month over month, for example. That's something that like we want that business owner to know and see and potentially take action on. And so that's something that's going to really help in this sort of, tying it together, like this sort of looming recession that we may be entering. Like not only is it the money in that's coming out, really important to monitor, but it's also how much you're spending as well. And so we want business owners to feel really empowered with a lot of different insights and, trends that they can take action on so that they can make their business more profitable.
Yeah, I bet that's a real reveal sometimes too, because sometimes you're just not really thinking about it. And then you see the, oh Oh, that's the number.
That's what's going to be really powerful of like being able to see those reports and see those trends go up and down over time and really take action on those.
Amy, I'm curious because of your position. I'm curious too. What is an effective way to market to small businesses? Or I mean, they'll find you because they need capital. So certainly that is a marketing technique in of itself. But yeah, tell me more about like what works with trying to engage with the audience.
Yeah. So, just a little more background on me. Prior to Pipe, I spent the last 8.5 years at Square. And so I have been marketing to small businesses for almost a decade now. My learning is that when you're really trying to market to them, you really want to market to them when it's most contextually relevant. And so, being inside the platform they are in every day, when they see that they're going to pay payroll and that at the same time they're pre-approved for $10,000, like that's going to help make that payroll so much easier. And so within the product, within the context of the product is really important. What's also really unique about what Pipe is doing too is because we're ingesting all of that data from our partners, we're able to pre-approve specific offers for that individual merchant. And so those are all personalized and individualized and pretty much guaranteed to have. The only caveat is, they still have to pass requirements like compliance and whatnot. But, if you're pre-approved for $100,000, there's like a 98% chance that you're going to get $100,000. And so that's pretty amazing as well, because we don't make this end business owner jump through different hoops and apply for credit checks and things like that. To make sure that they get that money. So, letting them know at the time of need and giving them an actual pre-approved offer that they know and can trust that they're going to get, that's going to really help increase the conversion and take rate of what we're offering today.
Yeah. It's like a funny version of product placement, but I mean, that's exactly what it is. And you referenced Square when you worked there, but this brings me up to, there's one segment of the show called That's What You Said. And so I'm pulling this up, but it's more about like career things. Cause I saw that you said, I thought that if I just worked hard enough, someone would notice and offer me the right opportunities. But here's the reality. No one is going to give you what you want unless you're vocal about it.
Totally.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I'm kind of curious about like how you think about, vocalizing for what you need and deserve, and how maybe that's changed over the years from, your early days at Square to now at your role at Pipe.
Yeah, so I would say that, early on in my career, I've been really fortunate to have some really incredible mentors at Square. I've had amazing bosses who have really, looked out for who's looked out for my career there. I got to hold so many different leadership roles at Square, and it wasn't really, by accident. Each time that I was excelling in a role, I was really excited to kind of take on a new challenge. And so, when there was something that was unsolved in the organization, I was usually the first person to kind of raise my hand and say, like, let me tackle that. I'm interested in helping. Let me know how I can help. And usually that's sort of how I got to expand my role over time, was tackling interesting problems that maybe weren't directly in my purview. And there are specific times where I actually just kind of raised to leadership that, I kind of want to take on something new. I've done this for a few years. I'm really interested in learning about this specific area, for example, transitioning into product marketing. I really wanted to get closer to product and really understand how product development happens, and, connecting with leaders within the organization and trying to find areas to get involved. That's actually, helped me land different leadership roles along the way.
I love that. And I love that you said it wasn't by accident. I recently was listening to a Modern Love podcast. I was interviewing Miranda July, who wrote a standout book on perimenopause, putting that out there. But she blew up from the book. Well, she was already famous, but certainly got more recognition for this. And she was telling the interviewer, hey, some people ask her, did you ever imagine your little story would go so big. And then she said something like, this was intentional.
Yeah.
This was actually the plan. So this is the outcome.
Totally. I think it's really important to kind of, write down what are some of your career goals in the next year, next three to 5 years, and just kind of revisit that over time and see if you're actually taking the right actions, taking the right, projects, for example, to get you to those different, to get you to those different goals. And so my recommendation for anyone in marketing or anyone in particular is just that you be really clear about what you're optimizing for and what you really want, and be open about it with the people around you. And that's how, if you don't make it known, it's never going to happen. And so if you do make it known, at least you can kind of work with the people around you to see how you're actually going to get there.
I'm +1. And Amy, just 2 questions for you. One, tossing the ball to you. Is there, any other areas you want to bring up, or, any takeaways for small business as they, look at this rocky road ahead, at least for this year, probably longer, but, and also how to reach out to you if someone wants to connect?
I've seen small businesses really, go through the ups and downs. I've seen, the ups and downs during COVID. And so my advice for small businesses is that, there's all, be really creative. I think that's what's really unique about your role today. So whether it's thinking ahead on how you can get really creative around purchasing inventory, or is there actually a new revenue stream that you didn't consider in the past? I think, I've always been really amazed to see what small businesses are capable of during rougher times, and the innovation that they're capable of. To get in touch with me, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. My email is also super easy to remember. It's just amy@pipe.com. So shoot me a note and I'm happy to connect.
Well, thank you for that. And my last question is, what is the image on your phone's lock screen?
It is a picture of my 2 kids. They are 4 and 6-year-old. I have a 4-year-old boy, 6-year-old girl, and they keep me very busy after 5 p.m.
Oh, I bet they do. That's really sweet. Well, Amy, thanks so much for being on Money's and Everything. It's been real fun chatting with you about small businesses and technology.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So one thing that stood out is how Pipe is already getting some small businesses seeking capital now to make a really big purchase in inventory, because they know tariffs are coming and that's really going to hit them hard, probably. In 2 weeks, I'm in conversation with Elizabeth Osborne, the COO of Great Lakes Credit Union. We'll be talking about open banking, Gen AI, and more. Catch you then.